So today in the world of AI, it's actually kind of a slow news day, which is kind of weird. They do exist, but some things have happened that are very interesting. So OpenAI sent this email out. There's one important thing and one good to know thing. The important thing is that they are still planning to launch the GPT store, but it looks like it's been pushed back to early 2024. So they were planning to launch it, well, now, and they're pushing it back just a little bit. The second thing they're talking about is that if you're uploading files to your GPT that you're building, those files are able to be downloaded when you enable Code Interpreter to use for GPT. So anything that requires text or Excel or anything like that, anything that uses Code Interpreter, the user is going to be able to extract whatever files you uploaded to your ChatGPT. So basically what that means is over here, they're going to say conversations with your GPT may include file contents. Files can be downloaded when Code Interpreter is enabled. And there's another big piece of OpenAI news. This is from The Economist. It seems that OpenAI is changing how their investors make money. So according to The Economist, and this was posted by Dr. Jim Fan, profits for investors in this venture were capped at 100 times their investment. Though thanks to a rule change, this cap will rise by 20% a year starting in 2025. And any profits above the cap flow to the parent nonprofit. So it's got kind of a weird structure where it has a nonprofit arm and then I guess a capped profit arm. But now the capped profit is, in the words of Dr. Jim Fan, an exponentially rising profit ceiling. So it sounds like you can 100x your investment on day one and then 20% a year starting then. So that's an interesting change. And it is kind of, it really does get away from sort of their nonprofit research lab roots, but it will ensure the capital needed to do pretty much whatever they want. This is an email I wrote on March 25th, 2023. And I said, OpenAI might be the first $1 trillion AI company. Back then, that was kind of a bold statement. Right now, not so much. It's already approaching a $100 billion valuation. This opens it up for massive investment. They have their partner with Microsoft. Sounds like they kicked off everybody off the board that will slow it down. I wish there was a way to invest in this company. And another interesting piece of AI news. Yesterday, we just saw DeepMind's GNOME or GNOME or Genome, however they're going to pronounce that, basically be an autonomous discoverer of new materials that we could potentially use for superconductors, for building materials, for batteries, etc. And today they drop another atom bomb, pun intended. So this is Igor Mordach, who used to be part of OpenAI and now is at Google DeepMind. He's saying, really excited to share our recent work on using AI to control an electron microscope to rearrange individual atoms. They also have a paper which is completely out of my wheelhouse. I will not even attempt. But they kind of have this neat little illustration here where it seems like they're moving a silicone atoms in graphene. And so by shining an electron microscope beam, they can temporarily knock the silicone out and make it exchange places with the carbon atom. So I hope I read that correctly. So this is silicone. So Silicon Valley like Bay Area and Silicon Valley like LA, I guess. And so they knock the atom out and they make it exchange places with a carbon atom. So I don't really know what this means in terms of the implications. Are we talking about Star Trek replicator? Is this a Star Trek replicator? Is this what we're talking about? Like I say, Earl Grey hot and a cup of hot tea appears. Is that what this is? I hope so. From a few days ago, we also have some really big news out of China. It seems that Chinese researchers are dropping some pretty amazing large language models that are approaching potentially GPT-4. Now, I don't think we're there yet. I haven't dove deep into this. So it seems like there's Qwen 72 billion parameters. They also have their Qwen 1.8 billion. And what's really interesting here is that they're open sourcing these models. These are open source. Looks like Greg Brockman just posted him happily smiling with Ilya Sutskever. So it seems like they're mending bridges and coming back together, which I would too if I heard that the capped profit model will be now compounding at 20% every year. I mean, can you imagine getting kicked out of that company right before they uncapped it? Now, I don't know what equity share Ilya has or doesn't have, but him being one of the key employees at that company, if he left, that might have been the biggest amount of money that someone has ever lost out on in the history of the world, potentially. And finally, if you recall, there was some talk about Sam Altman trying to raise money from certain Middle Eastern funds, some large money out of Middle East. Now, I didn't really look into that because it didn't relate to what we talk about in this channel, whether true or not, and whether or not that's what forced the board to try to kick him out. Doesn't really have anything to do with what we're talking about on this channel. But this person popped up on my radar, Matthew Pines, who seems to share a lot of information about certain world events, certain world governments, how they relate to US and how they relate to technology. So he's kind of a tech plus geopolitics analysis guy. I don't know too much about him, so take everything with a grain of salt. I can't vouch for or against them, but here are some interesting things that he's been stating. So in June of this year, Sam spoke at a forum in Abu Dhabi in partnership with G42. We'll come back to that in just a sec. And it's backed by the United Arab Emirates Sovereign Wealth Fund, Mubadala. So I guess this was the big fund, which the United Arab Emirates, they facilitate a lot of the world business for people to go there to kind of meet on a neutral territory. My understanding is a lot of business can be done there with no regulation, no taxes. And the money that's floating around in those funds, I don't know what it is, but when people kind of refer to it, it seems gargantuan. I remember when Charlie Munger, who recently passed away, was saying how he was talking about how much he loves Costco, the company. But when somebody asked him if he would continue buying at current valuations, he said he wouldn't, but a large fund out of the UAE or whatever he was referring to, he said they should be buying this up because of their amount of money and long-term investing horizons. And I think they have a big push to try to sort of diversify away from the oil. They want to transition away from that by investing in various other technologies such as electric vehicles, in microchips, and in AI. And so the G42, which is chaired by the United Arab Emirates National Security Advisor, they have a tech fund in partnership with this Mubadala, and they're involved with Chinese e-commerce giant JD.com. And so on June 10th, 2023, Sam gave the keynote virtually at the Beijing Academy of Artificial Intelligence, an event which involved Chinese firms sanctioned by the US. There he emphasized the need for US and Chinese researchers to collaborate on AI development to manage global risks. So he links a lot of stuff here that seems kind of fascinating, and I have to do a deep dive into it one of these days. But as we've been seeing, there are growing concerns in the US about China's ambition to become a major AI innovation center. So since then, we've produced the CHIP Act. We're trying to give money in forms of tax breaks to these big tech players in the US to produce their own chips. And a lot of them are jumping on board: Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and of course, NVIDIA. At the same time, we are restricting sale of these advanced chips to countries like China. And it seems like US has also expressed acute concerns over Mubadala's and SoftBank's investment activities. And so in October 18, 2023, Sam Altman traveled to the UAE and signed OpenAI to a partnership agreement with the G42. The deal, the financial terms of which were not disclosed, is part of a suite of measures aimed at developing the UAE's technology industry. And then not too long after that, Bloomberg reported that the OpenAI board was concerned that Altman has been looking to raise tens of billions of dollars from the Middle East sovereign wealth funds to create an AI chip startup to compete with processors made by NVIDIA, and was courting SoftBank Group. And so Yahoo confirmed that Altman had been traveling to the Middle East to fundraise for the project, which was codenamed Tigris, and raised tens of billions from SoftBank, Saudi M's Public Investment Fund, and the Mubadala Investment Company. And so it looks like this is all in the public domain. And also OpenAI board, the board might have a lot more details about it. So you do hear this idea that the US intelligence community, they do give defensive briefings to US firms. And so after all of this, so this is from yesterday, US compels Saudi fund to exit Altman-backed AI chip startup. So the Biden administration has forced Saudi Aramco-based venture capital firm to sell shares to a Silicon Valley AI chip startup backed by OpenAI co-founder Sam Altman. So Aramco is probably, I don't know what it's valued at, but trillions, I assume. So it seems like US is carefully guarding who these AI companies do business with, and they're trying to keep certain Chinese company and certain companies from the Middle East or investors from there away from these crucial technologies and critical infrastructure for AI, like chips, like these GPUs or microchips that NVIDIA produces. So whatever you thought the OpenAI story was, whatever the story behind Sam Altman's firing was, chances are it's much more complicated, much weirder than whatever we thought it was. So like I said, the news today are not specifically related to AI, but maybe we get just a glimpse into what was happening at OpenAI. And also the more and more we look forward to it, it seems like a lot of this talk about regulating AI and stopping AI, it doesn't seem to line up with where US is trying to go. And more we're hearing leaders of multiple countries, of Xi Jinping from China, Vladimir Putin from Russia, leaders of the UAE, and even Biden the other day talking about the importance of AI. The idea is that how the world develops over the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years, that may determine how the world will be for decades. So in March 22, 2023, Xi Jinping said to Putin, right now there are changes, the likes of which we haven't seen for 100 years. And we are the ones driving these changes together. Putin responded, I agree. And then Biden says there comes a time, maybe every 6 to 8 generations, where the world changes in a very short time. We are at that time now. And I think what happens in the next 2 to 3 years is going to determine what the world looks like for the next 5 or 6 decades. So now we have conflict in Eastern Europe, in the Middle East. And if you haven't heard, potentially something brewing in South America. So AI is becoming the atom bomb of our time, kind of this great mythical weapon that everyone is trying to develop. And microchips are becoming the oil, this incredible energy source to power the things that we want to power and grow and expand. So yeah, I don't think anyone's pushing the pause button anytime soon. With that, my name is Wes Roth, and thank you for watching.